Prologue. Lima opened her eyes slowly. As if coming to the end of a dark tunnel, she began to feel her body again. It was cold inside of her pod. Had she felt this cold for years? For months? No, it has only been 3 days. It was 3 days of Earth time, but the journey travelling through dimensions can make someone lose track of time. The distance she had travelled through dimensions didn't matter much to her. After crossing into the dimension where planet Earth was housed, she only knew her destination was Earth, a place she used to call home hundreds of years ago. Her home was a place that most, if not all, humans on Earth never even knew existed. Idukuria was her home. Or rather, it was a system of man-made planets that have been cultivated over thousands of years, stemming from the grit of Earthlings but completely detached from the events of Earth. I suppose most Earthlings would have a small idea of Idukurians. She pondered to herself as she began to feel her left arm. Earthlings are humans too, and the human imagination is nothing to take for granted. These were Lima's thoughts as she was coming to the end of her journey from Idukuria to Earth. She knew she must not take this moment of calm for granted. Once she regained all her motor functions, she would be focused on her knowledge-gathering mission. That's right, she thought. I've come to this planet to give it a diagnosis. We Idukurians must observe how Earthlings are progressing since we left this planet thousands of years ago. Lima was a part of a knowledge-gathering team that visited Earth every 20 to 30 Earth years. G.R.E.T was the name of her collegium. Consisting of cyborgs, known as Eno-Extorvians, they were given the order and great opportunity to observe how the ancestors of Earth were growing through the ages. Since the last mission, 1969, Idukurian observed that humans were making surprising strides. Looking toward the stars, they had sights set on observing the frontier above their heads. There was war, poverty, strife, triumph, philosophy, and many other events happening all over Earth at the time of the last mission. Though Lima was not a part of this mission, she felt a smile spread across her face. The Homo death theory had not come to pass. Though humans still struggled among each other, they were still learning and growing. She recalled reading about all the many advances and setbacks of humanity during G.R.E.T's 1969 mission. What are all the amazing things we might be able to do with our technology? Humanity on Earth has advanced in their industrialization in the past few hundred years, Lima pondered. But imagine what could be possible with... Lima's pondering came to a halt as a small rustling sound could be heard behind her. She froze. There was silence as Lima became consumed with fear. If she still had a heartbeat, it would be racing. The ship should be empty. All of the other T-brains should be sealed away. The brains are awaiting to be reawoken, and not one living thing should be awake. Lima thought to herself as her mind began to race. She grasped the arms of her seat in the cockpit and slowly began to turn her head. There was darkness behind her. A small dimensional craft did not have many places to hide. Her mouth ran dry as she took a deep breath to gather her courage. Quietly, slowly, she began to turn her body around, making sure her body was still concealed behind the seat. She took her hand and placed it on her belt, where a small crescent-shaped object was attached to her suit. With all of her energy, she made sure to keep her movement from making any noise. Silence continued to fill the air, and she cautiously peeked behind her. The path to the cargo area was dark. All the energy on the ship was mostly used to power the life support for the T-brains. As she made her way to the cargo area, she kept a firm grasp on her weapon. Suddenly, an alarm goes off on the ship. Lima whirls around to access the alarm when the sound of hurried footsteps dash toward her. Before she is able to assess the situation, a hard object crashes into Lima's skull as the alarm continues to sound. With blurry vision and hastened breath, Lima falls to the ground of her control panel. Laying, motionless, Lima keeps her body completely still.
"Get the T-brains,"
a low voice ordered. Slowly, pairs of footsteps could be heard walking away from Lima. As they got a small distance away, Lima jumped up and turned to face her attackers. Only seeing 3 shadowy figures in the blink of an eye, Lima gasped as a sharp object pierced her stomach. Stunned, Lima froze with shock. The sharp object that had pierced her stomach was being held in place by one of her attackers.
"I see you are away, Miss Captain Escapee,"
the low voice said mockingly.
"Hold her still."
One of the shadowy figures began to walk into the light as Lima continued to squint through blurry vision. Each of the figures wore grey, body-fitted suits, similar to Lima's. The suits were fitted for the dimensional travel Lima, a human, was enduring, but there were other life forms in the suits. The Kursiam was standing before her.
"You thought you could escape without saying goodbye, at least? How long have we taken care of you? Given you shelter from the dangers of space? You want to repay us by taking all of your friends and going back to this primitive world?"
The voice continued to patronize. Hearing those words, Lima gathered her strength and let out a strong-hearted reply.
"You won't get anything. You won't get the T-brains or sabotage this mission."
"Oh? Well, I guess we'll just have to turn around if we can't. Oh, never mind,"
Gorn said with a smirk.
"I think we just found the T-brains."
Another figure came into view, this time a feminine-like figure but with piercing yellow eyes. "We found them. Also, we are only a few minutes before we arrive in the Earth's dimensional sphere. We should get going," the figure suggested to Gorn. Lima felt her energy starting to dwindle, but her head and heart were racing.
"I can't let this end. I can't let this end,"
Lima pleaded to herself. The lives of the other dimensional researchers and the precious cargo they carry cannot fall into these hands. The Kursiam would surely use this technology to control the people of Earth.
"I can't let this end. I can't let this end. I can't let this end."
Lima's body came alive as her thoughts were transformed into action. Quickly swinging her arm in front of her and grabbing her attacker's forearms, she pushed herself off the sharp weapon and reached for her belt. She clasped a small crescent-shaped object and threw it with all her might at her attacker. Like a speeding boomerang, it made contact with her attacker's face before ricocheting to the shadowy figures. The 2 figures who were just discussing a moment earlier threw themselves in opposite directions as the small object continued to wildly fly around the area of the ship.
"Get the Tamabrains and let's get out of here,"
Gorn shouted in frantic desperation. The other figure began to scramble with the small black box as the crescent weapon continued to fling in all directions.
"Get the Black Tama,"
Gorn said hurriedly. Lima, holding her wound, tried to stand, but the pain hindered her movement. Her attacker was crouched near the ground, trying to avoid the ricocheting weapon from making another hit.
"Ah!"
the female figure exclaimed. She had found what she was looking for. A small black marble. The Black Tama was in her possession. Clenching the small object in her fist, her hand began to glow. She pointed her glowing fist towards a small exit door and let out a loud grunt. A beam of energy shot from her hand, making an explosive contact with her target. The 3 figures raced toward the door and grabbed a hold of her shoulder. Gorn gave one small glance at Lima before all 3 figures leapt from the hole in the ship. Lima pulled herself back to the cockpit control panel, pressing a button to activate an emergency door. As quickly as she pressed the button, the hole created by the blast was sealed. A moment of silence fell on the ship. Lima slowly lifted herself back to the cockpit control system. she saw a small yellow button that had one meaning: emergency.